Hello everybody, it's Matt Anderson and welcome to 3 things I did last week that were outside my comfort zone. And before I launch into this is my first one, I just want to express how nervous I am about making this video. This is a lot different than just talking about exciting things I've learned. But anyway, the premise of me doing this is, that if I'm going to be part of the journey that you're on in terms of taking the big leap, in terms of getting unstuck, then I want to demonstrate that I'm walking that talk. And it's also based on the premise that all of our dreams lie outside our comfort zone. So, it's whatever's uncomfortable. If this is one of those things, then here I am. So the 3 things that I'm going to share from the last 7 days that were uncomfortable for me. The first one is probably the easiest to talk about, which was I interviewed a Stanford economist. Stanford professor just wrote a book, amazing academic credentials. It's the first time I've interviewed someone like that, and I definitely had butterflies for certainly a couple, 2 or 3 days beforehand. I did lots of swatting up and kind of reading through some of his book, but I think I was, sort of worried that I'd feel silly or that I'd ask questions that would be a waste of his time, that somehow I'd look foolish and not be able to sort of hold my own in a meaningful conversation. And not just that, but also be able to avoid too much jargon, which he did. That was really on him, which was a good thing. But also to make the conversation accessible. And I was just really proud. I just thought it was, I felt like I held my own. So that's the lesson I learned, was that I can talk to people like that, and they're not the people I usually talk to, like salespeople and business owners. So that was the first thing. Second thing, really way out of my comfort zone, even talking about, I suppose, but my wife and I decided that we thought we'd benefit from some marriage counseling. And I will be honest, we did have a meeting in the last week, and I'm always really uncomfortable going. I'd rather share the week before that, just because I was so unbelievably uncomfortable. I was looking for reasons to fire her. I talked to my wife about that we should find someone else. I was 15 minutes late. I did no preparation in terms of thinking about how I was going to get there, so I was really late. I was desperately uncomfortable about going. I was squirming in the couch where we sat. I was dreading it, and it ended up being, kind of a breakthrough conversation, at least around one contentious issue that'd been between my wife and I, and so that was, again, way out of my comfort zone. I grew up in a family where we didn't talk about feelings at all, so this was, definitely one of those things. So what was the lesson I learned? The lesson is, do those uncomfortable things. That was probably the biggest lesson I learned, and be willing to open up. And then the third thing was I'm taking a podcasting class from Pat Flynn online, very good. And his challenge, I suppose, was that at this point, now we'd launched our podcast, was to reach out to the top podcasters in our genre, in the subject matter area, and ask them to interview us. So at first you're thinking, okay, and then you go on and you start onto iTunes and you start looking at these things and you're thinking, they're not going to interview me, there's no way, they're not even going to give me the time of day. The self-talk's terrible. But anyway, I did it anyway. And I should be able to tell you exactly how many people I contacted, but let's say it was at least 8, something like that. I don't think it was 10, although it took a lot longer than, anyway, as an excuse. But what I learned is that, okay, fine, if you contact, let's say 10, because altogether there've been those kinds of requests, not necessarily in the last week, 1 or 2 will get back to you. One, I think, is saying, yes, I'll find out today. And the other one said, very interested, come back to me in August. So, okay, fine. So the rest I haven't heard from. But the real lesson learned for all of us is, if you don't ask, you don't get. It's like the sports metaphor. You miss all the shots you don't take. So what have you got to lose? It's silly not to take some of those shots, because some of them are going to work for you. So those are my lessons. And in terms of wrapping this up, I want to say, why my goal behind doing this is, yes, public accountability, walk my talk, force me out of my comfort zone, which requires a ton of force. Grew up an introverted, ex-primary school teacher, very fearful family culture, Don't take risks. But the other main reason I'm doing it is to encourage anyone watching this. If it's one person, I don't care, but encourage everyone watching to think about, do at least 3 things that are outside your comfort zone, whatever that is by your definition. The things I talked about may be totally comfortable for you. That's not the point. What's uncomfortable for you, and you can feel it. So you can't fake it. You can claim to fake it, but you can feel it. And that's the only way you'll know if it's really outside your comfort zone. You have those butterflies. And that's it. I'll talk to you next week. Matt Anderson, good luck.